Okay, let's see next. First of all, I'm going to try. This is a 140-pound Artistico, Fabriano Artistico, cold press, bright white. A little bit different paper. It's going to react a little bit differently. It's not as heavy and thick as the 300 pounds, so it's going to probably buckle a little bit more. But it is the backside of another study I did, so I'm a fan of being efficient with my paper and use both sides on a regular basis. I wanted to touch a little bit on sort of the last two colors that I don't think we've talked about really at all, and these are going to be more of the grayed out, desaturated colors. I'll start with the tips here, the banana stalk end tips. I really don't know what they're called, but this part, and we're mostly just playing with some tans and yellows and browns, and it's a good study on how to go from a yellowish color to a desaturated, darker yellowish color to a very dark desaturated color. Some would argue that, does that look yellow? Obviously not. But as we make our way from in the color wheel from a lighter value to a darker value, this is one way, especially with yellow, you can go. There's several ways. You can always go with any color. More on that at some point. But and then this is the background, and this is just this study I've already done is just straight indigo. And once again, I encourage you to do more of these. Do a lot. The more you do, the more you'll learn. That was a fairly obvious statement, but true nonetheless. So I'm going to, for that background, I am going to have try to have a little bit more fun with making grays and darker grays and warmer grays and cooler grays. But first, on the banana stalk tip things, ends, is going to be, it is a little bit warmer. We're going sort of to a warmer, more orangey color. So I'm going to start with my warmer orange. Excuse me, warmer yellow. Orangey yellow. And like my other studies, just sort of start out with a watery wash of that. And this is a nice little mix. There's a color called quinacridone gold, which is another beautiful color, and is very fun. These two colors can emulate the hue of quinacridone gold, if not exactly all the other properties, but it's a nice thing to know how to get to all sorts of colors depending on where you're starting from. And if and when you do start using a color like quinacridone gold, you'll know to sort of think of it in terms of, it's sort of like a warm yellow with a little bit of desaturation to it. It's not quite a pure rainbowy yellow. It's getting desaturated or less pure, in this case towards a brown. This paper is being pretty nice. So yeah, that's a first layer for that. could have started out lighter, but for demonstration purposes, went with that. So for the background, I'm gonna play a little bit with mixing some indigo and some quinacridone burnt orange. I kind of consider, especially for teaching purposes, I consider these two colors to be my cool dark, the indigo being more bluish, and the quinacridone burnt orange being my warmer dark, more towards brownish orangey. And so when we mix them together, they will neutralize each other even more to where we get kind of a gray that is neither leaning towards the blue side nor leaning towards the orangey side. The quinacridone burnt orange doesn't go as dark as indigo does, so there are times when, to create an even darker warm quinacridone burnt orange, I'll actually add a little bit of indigo, which just takes it down the value scale. So it's always fun to think, like, is it completely, is it not leaning either way, either towards blue or towards cool or warm? And the reason, I think it's just good to be able to mix those and keep training your eye to learn what is what, and to learn how what a color is will change depending on what color is next to it. Doesn't seem like it ought to be able to do that, but it does. So I'm starting out with just a like I've done with the other. Oh boy, that was a lot of water. Cool. It's 140 pounds, and I feel like it's not quite as forgiving when I sort of inadvertently bring in too much water. But it's okay. Let me start putting in a little bit more of the indigo just to kind of be able to tell when it starts going to a little bit bluer. And I know when I started taping these, when I start teaching these color studies, I definitely like to start out with one pool of color that I try to paint the whole thing from, because that's confusing enough as is. Well, you're just, enough of a thing to learn with just one color. The more comfortable you get with it, the more you'll be able to add a little bit of a different color on the fly, like I just did. And this is drawing. Oh, it's drawing fine. It's not exact, but color study. And I once again, kind of a cool watercolor thing it's doing. And I am not sure if that side is all the way dry. So I'm going to plug in my handy dandy hair dryer. and make sure that it is. Hopefully that will dry while I'm painting. Be as efficient as possible here time-wise. It's still sort of buckly. You can tell it is buckled. Usually I don't touch it with my fingertips, but once again, it's a study. I'm learning. So the next layer is a little bit stronger, more concentrated mix of those same colors. A little bit leaning more towards the quinacridone burnt orange. These are nice colors. I like that combo. It's interesting. It's just different enough from a watery quinacridone burnt orange. It looks kind of the same. Well, I don't. Either way, it's not. And once again, because I have going a little too fast, I don't think I mixed up enough color. So let's see if I can get something that's darn close to that color, especially amount of water wise. I really don't. It'd be kind of nice if it's probably a little bit darker. But what I don't want to do is try to introduce a much more watery paint than I was already using, or a much drier mixture, I should say, instead of paint. So do as I say, not as I do. And yeah, that worked, I think. It is interesting. It's quite buckly, and I think it may flatten out after it dries, but it may not. That side seems pretty dry. So yeah, more playing with the grays and just playing with mixes and playing with amounts, and so what you can see here, I would say, is more of a warm, dark. Heck, let's see what that does. I'm going to put that on this. Grays are a fascinating thing because, well, they are not, well, depending on who you are, inherently beautiful colors in themselves. They certainly, some of them can be, and that's very much a a matter of opinion. But what's not as much of a matter of opinion is how, when you juxtapose a grayed out color also known as a desaturated color, next to a more saturated, a more pure color. Each of them will enhance that characteristic. So the more saturated, pure color will appear that much more pure and saturated, and vice versa. So I usually think of them as sort of a passing color from one color to another, and helping to create more contrast. It was a warm gray. That was kind of fun. And since it was fun, try this too. This is some quinacridone burnt rose. You don't have to try this, but I encourage you to try this. Part of the fun of that background shape is to try to lighten up a little bit about not worrying if you get weird blossoms and blooms going on, which I think I discussed in class. And as part of the whole point of that is that it's getting grayed out and sort of blurry, and making it so all the pure colors of the foreground, the fruits, appear that much more colorful. Let's see what I'm going to do here. Okay. This is one of those watercolor moments where it looks, if I sort of like that look, I can think, wow, that looks cool. And then after it dries, we'll have to accept that it really doesn't look like that anymore. We'll see. I'm going to stop there. Move on to something else. Actually, more of this guy probably. Okay.